Presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 and you use the promo code WELCOME to Light Years. Tommy, my expectations today were, I wouldn't say they were the highest. No Porzingis in the morning. Obviously, no Steph, no Draymond. Denver Nuggets. Yes, I know they've been kind of complacent for a while, but in general, things on paper did not look good. But wow, what a game! What a fun way to spend a mid Sunday. I've been over the last month trying to process how I want to enjoy the Warriors going through it the rest of the way, and I think today is the exact example. Gigantic play by the young guys, big leaps really by Moses Moody and Podz at the end there. They played hard the entire game. We're not going to pretend they have more talent than Denver, or any of that stuff, but they put forth an effort that any Warriors fan can be proud of tonight. And then we're seeing kind of what we want to see, which is, look, it's not what we're hoping for, competing for a title, but we are seeing growth from players who can be part of next year and going forward.
First of all, as we've hit on multiple times recently, Steve has these guys playing inspired basketball. Obviously, Thursday was ugly. Celtics just came in and just ran them out of the gym. It's going to happen sometimes when you have the lesser talent. No Steph, obviously no Jimmy, no KP. We know who's out. But Steve has these guys playing inspired basketball. And again, for the millionth time, any Steve Kerr hater is a fucking idiot. He's one of the best coaches in the league. He's one of the best culture setters in the league. But the biggest thing that I am taking away from this, Podz haters, where are you at? Are you guys in the comments today? Are we going to do this again? Am I going to go on Twitter and have to see how bad of a player he is? The guy who's been the best plus minus since joining the Warriors, better than Steph, better than Draymond. I understand he has flaws. I understand he can be frustrating. I understand he talks too much. I wish the shot making was better. But he's a good basketball player. And I know me and you both, because we are two of the biggest riders on the Podz bandwagon. I've been waiting for this moment. The moment where he essentially makes
a fuck you performance.
18, 14, and 9 today. And I know he's been waiting for that breakthrough. But the issue is he's overtasked right now because of the roster. It is not Podz's fault that they have built a roster and they have injuries that ask him to do too much. Right? That's not his fault. And I'm not saying some of the projections for him a couple years ago were probably too lofty. But we talked about this a little offline right before we started. I really think the comparison for him is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was a guy who struggled early in his career, bounced around a lot, couldn't really figure out the jump shot, but affected the game positively in so many ways that he was pretty much always a positive contributor. And when the shot came around and he actually became a competent 6 to 7 attempts a game, 40% three-point shooter who you could not leave open, then he's the point guard of an NBA championship team. And I'm not saying that's necessarily in the cards for Podz. I'm not saying he has that ceiling. But this is a guy who's going to play 10 to 12 years in the league. He's going to be an impactful player on many winning teams. And anybody who doesn't see that, I'm sorry, you just don't know basketball. You do not know ball. He can be frustrating, obviously, but that is a good basketball player. He's only 22, 23 years old. There is more to grow from here.
Yeah. By the way, took the words out of my mouth there. I think two things can be true. I was so bullish at the end of year 2. He was really awesome post Jimmy trade. I thought there was going to be growth. I thought he was going to honestly play himself to a contentious contract negotiation through year 3. And that has not happened to date. He's been more or less as good as he was last year. And that's frustrating because the Warriors kind of put all their eggs in the basket of one of these young guys taking a step, and he's just the latest in that one. But to your point, he is a good player. We'll see where he lands long term. I think the thing that I liked most about today was he finally got some space. I think this is also true of Moody, who we'll talk about next.
Yes.
I go back and forth on this because Kerr being, I don't want to say difficult, but being so on top of guys to make the right play and to buy into their role can lead to young guys like Podz and Moody feeling lost in certain contexts.
Overthinking.
Yeah, exactly. It's hey, don't shoot that, kick it to Steph. Don't shoot that, kick it to Jimmy. That sort of thing. And so when those guys are out there and no one expects them to win, then you get the opportunity to just play a little freer. And what I loved most about Pod's game tonight was he missed 9 straight. What was he? 1 for 10 to start
Something
the game.
like that. Yeah.
He hit one of his first threes and then proceeded to miss 9 straight shots. And then what happened in the fourth quarter? He came alive with, I don't know. I was joking. It was like the true white mamba here, like joke, but like that was like he caught fire. But what was more important to me was he didn't lose confidence. He kept playing through it. And those are things that just simply were not happening with Jimmy and Steph. And, I'm not going to feel sorry for him in that context because winning games is pretty cool. And he was able to slot in and play that, fourth or fifth starter role next to those guys. Fine. But if there is one positive thing to take out of what is essentially a lost half season here, lost in context of doing anything legitimate in the playoffs anyway, is Podz and Moody are going to get their opportunity to really explore what they're capable of and to learn through mistakes in a way that, and they're not this player, the completely different player, in a way Jordan Poole got to in the second half of 2021 and how it led to an awesome 2022. So I don't know anymore what that means for Moody or Podz. I expect them to get better. How much better? I mean, certain days I can talk myself into the Kyle Lowry thing, like you're saying, or like Halliburton or stuff like that. And other days it's like, I don't know, man, he's going to have a nice long career, but don't expect more than 10, 4 and 4 and like the occasional 18 to 20 point outburst. Both I can see on any given day. I don't think either is a bad thing, to be honest. But if you want to take a silver lining from what we're dealing with for the second half of this season, they're going to get the reps that they quite frankly would not have been able to get if Jimmy and Steph were healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take the glass half full view, there is a certain vibe to this team that does feel like that team at the end of the 2020-2021 season. Obviously Steph's not playing right now, and Steph was a lot of that was Steph just being nuclear, otherworldly, being one of the best players in the history of basketball for the last 2 months, 25 games of that 2021 season. He was averaging like 46 and 6 on like 68% true shooting. So that's a lot of it, but kind of the overall feeling around this team, it's like a bunch of really competent role players who are probably a little bit overtasked, but they're all bought into the idea of what is forming. And I think the Poole part is like it's a perfect kind of jumping off point, because that's the freedom that Moses and Podz are going to get for the rest of this season. It really is. They're going to need those guys to step into those roles. And sometimes being overtasked and like failing in these situations, especially if they can get into the playoffs and like play around, or in some world, maybe two, having those responsibilities in those moments, it will help them moving towards next year. Obviously, and talked about Podz, but Moses has been so good outside of December, where he was really
23, 7 and 5 assists on top of, I don't want to say Klay Thompson like shooting, but like the dude is hitting everything. He is a legitimate shooter. I mean, you felt him the entire game.
Yeah, and he's just been really outside. He had that really cold stretch in December where he kind of looks like the Moses that we've come to know.
I was so out then. I was like, officially, it's never happening. It's time to move him.
For everybody that's watching or watching live, listening live, or listening, whenever you're listening, Sam was texting me every day about how frustrated he is with Moses. He was ready to sell him for spare parts back in December. And look, we all have bad takes. I have my fair share of them, but I think the general point is Moses has been so good outside of December. Like, the shot is real. We have essentially a 4-month sample now of him being an incredibly confident, high volume, 40% 3-point shooter. And you're seeing it grow with him every game. And not only do you see it through the confidence in like the shots he's taking and the plays he's making, just a little bit more, he's willing to take a little bit more risk. And this is, I think I do have a little bit of, I guess, empathy for Moses and Podz in a way. And look, I was obviously I was a good high school basketball player, small time college player, but in high school, I was the star. Like, Podz was at Santa Clara. Like, I had the ball in my hands all the time. You get to a different situation where now you have to move into a smaller role and you start questioning, like we were saying, overthinking every decision. It's really hard to take that step back sometimes. So it's a whole readjustment period where you go from handling the ball every single possession and making every decision to now everything's very scaled down. It's tough to do that, especially as a young player it can be tough to scale down into a smaller role and understand what the right shots are, what the right decisions are. And that is the struggle that we have seen Moses and Brandon go through, like over multiple years. They are struggling
without a lot of patience, because if you have Steph and you have Jimmy out there, there's an expectation you win games.
Yes.
So you can't like let them play through it and maybe cost you 3 games in a week for the greater good. It's like, no, we're trying to win games right now. So, these moments, it's a reminder that, they're both good players. They're both going to have long careers in the NBA. We'll see how good they are. I got a stat for you. This is a good one here. Since Jimmy has got injured, which is a glib point to go with the stat, Moses Moody is averaging over 15 points per game, over 42% on almost 8 threes, not quite 8.
Wow.
7 point, we'll call it 7.6 or so. And about 5 rebounds. Assists are about 2 a game now after tonight's performance, but like the volume is going up and the efficiency is going with it. It goes to your point. Like most of his life, he's probably been used to getting 15 plus shots in a game, right? He's been used to being used as the shooter. He's never been a first option, and that's fine, but he's used to being like pretty high up in the pecking order, getting the touches, getting into his rhythm. He's never really got that with the Warriors because they've had better players and better options to run through. Now he's getting that, and you're seeing like, yeah, this guy could, who I think of when I watch him a little bit? Like he could be like Wes Matthews. Remember Wes Matthews?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Or Danny Green,
like
that type of player.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Danny Green might be underselling how much offensive upside there is here, because Danny was a better defender than Moses has been to date, although Moses could definitely get there. Like, not saying he can't. But Danny Green was always kind of like a 10 to 12 point per game guy, 4th or 5th starter. Wes Matthews, until like the injuries piled up, was like averaging like near 20 points. He was like a 17, 18 point per game. Yeah, exactly. Like he wasn't in the Klay Thompson category, but he was above the like true 3-and-D, 5th option bailout shooter. So somewhere in the middle there. And I think that's, I don't even want to put a ceiling on Moses, but my point is, it would not shock me if in a couple of years he's averaging close to 20 points in this same type of role. Like he can do it. He's, what is he, 23 now? Like he's got a lot of career ahead of him, and he's playing so confidently now.
Yeah, no, what I really do like that Wes Matthews comparison. He was probably kind of the most underrated part of those Lillard, Aldridge, Portland teams that were pretty damn good. And eventually they obviously moved off Aldridge, or he signed with San Antonio in free agency. But like,
I mean, they were. Well, I just want to throw this out there. This is a completely irrelevant point to it, but like he was awesome. Batum was awesome at small forward. Like, if anything, it was like LaMarcus Aldridge, you're probably not good enough to be a first option on a
They were like if the NBA world was what it was like then, what it is now, they would have been like the hipster favorite. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, like Batum's kind of fun. Wes Matthews is fun. Lillard's like kind of an up and coming guy. But yeah, Wes was. I mean, it's a great shout, because essentially what Moody's turning into, he's like, if this is real, which I genuinely do think it is, and maybe not 23 a night, but 15 to 16 a night, great defensive impact, a guy that you can never leave open. He's turning into your prototypical modern 2-3. Yeah, that's essentially what he is, and that is what we've talked about this before. That is what this team has been genuinely missing since Klay left. And you're never finding another Klay Thompson. That's pie in the sky. That is one of the best 2 guards of all time. Yeah, that's one of the best 2 guards of all time. That's a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is, if you are going to have the strict kind of 3-and-D definition, he's the best ever at it. Like he genuinely is, because Reggie, you can argue who's a better scorer between like Klay and Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. Those guys are probably a little bit more diverse scorers than Klay was in some ways. Klay could get hotter, but those guys could do a little bit more at their peaks potentially, but they were nowhere near the defenders that Klay Thompson, you know what I mean? Like Klay's a all defense level guy. So, but you're just kind of looking for a guy who can fill that role. And if Moses keeps this up, like, again, this can be building like the way at the end of 2021 was. And it doesn't mean they're going to win a championship next year if everybody gets healthy and everybody's right, but there are positive signs if they can kind of keep this trajectory going.
I assumed they were going to lose today, and I was texting you like, what are we going to talk about if they lose? And my thought was like, what do they need to do to get on Denver's level? Now they won, so I don't really want to get into that conversation, but I will say this. If you're looking at everything through the lens of what can you do to position yourself best for next year,
Yeah.
Give players space and let them figure out who they are. Let them explore. It'll work twofold, honestly. It really will. It's like either they grow into the role you want them to have next year, or they play themselves better so that you have a better trade chip to make that move you want. Point being, playing well is always a positive, particularly for young players.
Wow, that's a bold take, Sam.
Yeah, I know, right? Right.
Don't get too crazy. Isn't this? I can't help but think. Not that I want to fully go there. Having this talk about like giving young players more space to grow and have opportunity. It's ironic in the wake of Kuminga finally being traded. You know what I mean? Because like that was always the complaint. That was always the complaint from kind of the Kuminga stands, more or less. Like he doesn't have room to grow. The leash is too short. Yada yada yada. But the issue,
you know why it is.
But the issue is what Kuminga never did are the little things that Moses and Podz do to give them more bites at the apple, to have these opportunities. The reason those guys stay in the rotation for the most part, especially now, they always do the little things. You never have to question if they're going to do those things. Whereas Kuminga was like kind of hit or miss with that type of stuff. So as a coach, as somebody who has been around basketball for a long time, if you're on a coaching staff, you are always going to have a little bit of bias towards guys who are doing.
Well, there was an entitlement. There was an entitlement with him. Let's be honest. Like Moses and Podz have not played consistently good basketball for 3 years, but they have brought consistently great effort.
Yes,
every game, and you don't see them publicly complaining when they're getting benched or killed publicly for whatever reason. I mean, Steve has called out Podz like a handful of times over the last year, and he's hard on him because he thinks he can handle it. And also, like, he started him, he pulled him to the bench, he started Pat Spencer over him. We know Podz didn't like that stuff. Like you see the body language on the bench, you see how he gets frustrated, gets pulled out of games, but he continued fighting at it. And then Moses, like, goes without saying, that dude's got
he's a metronome,
short end of the stick for such a long time. And like, I'm sure if you talk to him privately or people in his circle, his family, like I'm sure there's days where it's just like, man, I cannot handle this anymore, but you never see it. He shows up the next day and he plays his ass off as hard as he can. And eventually it all comes through. And I think that is the truth of the coaching staff. And that is the thing no one really wants to talk about with that situation, or the Wiseman one prior. The coaching staff didn't want to coddle either of them. They didn't have the space to. And they didn't think they had to in the context of the team that they had, So all of it goes back to the same misalignment. But hey, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Yeah. Let's move this forward.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's pay some bills and we'll jump back into it. Lightyears podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 sports app for sports picks. Sam, do you know what I actually had today? And I'm not joking about this. I had Podz more on his total for points, rebounds, assists. It felt great. That felt really. And I actually
did you play that before or after the Porzingis news? Was that a late entry?
After it was a late entry after the Porzingis news, and I also had the
smart though.
I think Al Horford's threes was like 1.5 or 2.5. He hit that in like 8 minutes. So it was a good day. It's a beautiful Sunday. It's sunny down here in Southern California. It's just a great day all around, and we get a Warriors win. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports takes into real money all season long on Prize Picks. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win. So download the app today and use code Lightyears to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code Lightyears to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
It is good to be right. Before we move forward, guys, just want to talk about Thrive City real quick. Look, I love when we get sponsored by products that I genuinely use, and Thrive City falls exactly to that category. As many of you know, I have a small child, and as many of you know, with small children, there's nothing worse than a 4-year-old hopped up on sugar. You learn pretty quickly to become an ingredient detective, which is a frustrating thing. I don't want to have to think about it when I'm buying something or I'm pulling something out of the cabinet. And that's what Thrive City has made easy. Running a home is already enough. You shouldn't have to be an ingredient detective. Thrive Market does the vetting for you with over 1,000 restricted ingredients, vetted brands, trusted staples. They make it easy with thousands of healthier swaps and the things your kids like. Thrive's app also makes it easy to shop for your family's need with endless label reading, without endless label reading. There's over 90 filters. So, I'm talking about low sugar, but you can get a high protein filter, gluten-free, plant-based, basically whatever it is that you want to filter dietary restrictions, you can. Join Thrive Market with my link, Thrive Market /Lightyears for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's thrivemarket.com /Lightyears for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift. Basically, they're going to give you a free round of groceries to try them out. And then from there, I'm very confident you're going to be ordering consistently month after month. All right. We'll get to some callers in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about this Steve Kerr quote pregame.
Mm-hmm. Two, that as you get older, we know what Draymond's capable of. We know too that as you get older, it's tougher to do it every night. In his prime, Draymond, you could count on him every single night. You get older, it doesn't work that way. There's going to be nights where shots go in. There's nights where they don't. But the thing that's consistent with Draymond is he's there for us every night. The level of defensive intensity, but also just acumen is so helpful for us. And then we just have to read the game. There's been a few games lately where Al has closed without Draymond. So it's our job as a staff to try to find the best combinations and read the game. And so in the past, Draymond would always be out there at the end of the game. And now it might be Al. And Draymond understands that. And he's handled that really well.
Combinations, baby. Combinations.
First off, it's logical. Like, him and Al Horford do functionally play the same role. They can obviously play together because they're both versatile and smart enough too. But Al's been better. Al's been better for a couple months now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Between the trade deadline where we heard Draymond was potentially involved in trades, which then they denied and said never happened, and blah, blah, whatever. It does feel kind of like the beginning of the end with Draymond here. I wasn't ready to go there in the first half of the season. I was holding on to that Spurs game for about a month and a half afterwards, but there's no way around it. He's had a bad season. It is not for a guy who finished third in Defensive Player of the Year last year. Second, I'm sorry. Top three. My bad. Yeah. He should have won.
I might have been third, but either way, your point stands.
He should have won, but that's neither here. The point is he was in the conversation. I don't think he's washed, but that's the thing about aging. You fall off a cliff pretty quick. I think he could still contribute, but the days of being a game-to-game defensive anchor might be gone. And you're seeing the Warriors deal with that in real time right now with the way they communicate it. And I think the most, I don't want to say it's frustrating, but the most jarring part is in the past, if he wasn't on the floor, it'd be a mess.
Yeah.
And now increasingly when he doesn't play, they're better. Or at minimum, you don't notice it nearly as much.
Yes.
Because Al could replace that role because guys like Guy Santos and Melton and keep going down the line, compete their asses off. They're able to get away without him there. It is hitting a point where, in my opinion, he is no longer irreplaceable for this team. A year ago, even honestly, as recently as 6 months ago, I'd have been like, look, man, you can dislike him all you want. You can find some of the stuff he says obnoxious, but you need him out there. I don't feel that way anymore.
There's so many directions to take this. And, for everybody, I did a, kind of a little 8 to 10 minute breakout on this over the past weekend. So if you guys haven't watched that, go watch it. I kind of go into this more in depth, but I think the bigger thing is number one, what the Warriors haven't done over the past couple of years is actually have real big man depth. And that's part of the reason why it's always looked so bad without Draymond is now they have Al Horford, like you referenced. So they can play games without him. And kind of like Steve is saying, and I've hit this point so many times over the past couple of years in regards to Steph or Clay or Draymond or any star who's aging. It's not about your ability to get to the ceiling. Drake can get to the ceiling. We've seen it this season, even as he's fallen off. It's how consistently you can get to that ceiling. That is the part of aging. Steph can still go for 46 and 49 in back-to-back games in San Antonio, but he also might score 13 points against Memphis on a random Tuesday night. Like
might get runner's knee.
Yeah, right. He might get runners. Like 2016 Steph, no matter how shitty he's feeling, he's never scoring 13 points. There was a level of quickness and agility and just kind of liveliness to everything he did where that game is never happening, like where that low scoring game is never happening. It's the same for Dre. Like he needs to have the motivation and kind of like the fire behind the meaning of the game to get to that level. And I still believe he can. Like we've seen it. But with kind of the parts they have on the roster now between Al and obviously Post in a way too, like I thought QP didn't play a ton, but like I thought he did a pretty good job on Jokic for the most part when he was guarding him in like isolation situations. They didn't have a guy like that the past couple of years. But I mean, I think what this is really progressing towards, and I did hit on this in the video I did, you're kind of moving towards that Draymond and the Andre Iguodala role if he stays with the team. And I do think they need to renegotiate with him in the summer. Like they can't really afford, if he picks up the $28 million player option, he probably gets traded, honestly. And I think he knows that. Draymond's a smart enough guy to understand if he picks up that option, the likelihood of him getting traded goes up.
They also you can have your qualms with the front office, and Lord knows I do, but they seem to do a very good job of honest communication with at least Steph and Draymond and the veteran guys. Like he was very aware of what was going on at the deadline. He didn't seem to have hard feelings about it. And I'm guessing he probably didn't have hard feelings about it because they likely had an honest conversation with him, and as opposed to like him finding out about it through a shams leak.
Well, Joe said there was no chance we were ever trading him. So who are you going to believe here, Sam?
Oh,
I had to do it.
Well, Mike said that too. I like
they're fucking lying.
It's not important. It's not important, but like it's a dumb lie. Like who cares? Who cares? Like Draymond already talked about it publicly. He's like, I'm okay with it. I understand the business. I know what they're trying to do. Like, who are you lying for? It's like the relationship lie where you lie about exactly completely pointless. It's like, yeah, I bought toilet paper. It's like, no, you clearly did not. It's like, what is the point of that lie even? Like, what are you gaining from that lie?
It's like when your girl tries to tell you she's been drinking water all day when she clearly has. It's like, I haven't seen you take one sip of water. No wonder you're angry. Hydrate. Like it's that, like, we know you're lying to us. There's no point. Like, we know where we're at,
and we're not even mad about it. That's the funny part. Like no one's mad about it. You're like lying for the sake of lying for a reason. Like I don't understand it.
It's just so dumb. Like
I would at least understand the lie if like Draymond was publicly expressing negative feelings towards the organization, but he was doing the opposite. He was like actually being like, love the team, understand the business. It is what it is.
Every time he talked about it, that's what he did. Not only like in post-game press conferences, like for anybody that didn't listen, he went on Pardon My Take for he did like an hour and a half with them. And it was before the deadline. And he talked about, no matter what happens, I'm so grateful for the 13, 14 years that I've had with the organization. I understand how this business works. And we've touched on it so many times. Draymond can be an asshole. He can be a dick. He can be so annoying, but he's not an idiot. That's the biggest thing. And that's part of the reason he gets so much grace, is because at the end of the day, when he's not in a very kind of emotionally revved up state, he understands how all this stuff works. Right. So, but the biggest thing is they do have to renegotiate with him during the summer. Else, I really don't think he'll be here next year.
You hit on the right point, which is this is the difference between him and Clay, by the way.
Yes.
And it's not like a negative. Well, I mean, it ultimately ended up playing out negatively, but like Draymond has more self-awareness about where he stands in the league than Clay does. Clay could just never get over the injuries. I totally get it, given who he is as a player. Like the way it played out at the end was ugly, but like I'm also of the mindset, I don't know that it could have gone another way. The only other way is if the Warriors threw him a pity $150 million. And then we'd all be annoyed at the reality of like what that does to the roster, and he'd be in trade rumors and no one would want him, something like that. Draymond, for all the frustrating things he does, he's never demanded more money than he can truly get on the market. And he's never really asked the Warriors to overpay him. He's just asked the Warriors to match what he gets on the market. Like, it was, at this point, it's pretty well known that Memphis and I think Dallas were willing to give him 4 years over $100 million. And that was his leverage to just go to the Warriors and be like, look, man, this is what I have out there. If we can match it, I'm back. Let's make this work. Right. That's kind of all he really cared. He didn't take it personally that they tried to negotiate with him. He just understood the business. Right. So he's always had that kind of self-awareness. He knows who he is.
Yeah. And obviously, he obviously understands too, like how big for the way he is now as an offensive player. He understands how important Steph is to him, and recreating that environment somewhere else is literally impossible. But I also think he understands, and he wants to be a one franchise guy. I do think that's important to him. Like that is something that matters. A lot of super duper, top end, top 15, top 10 guys have the opportunity to do that because they're good enough to where they just can. Not a lot of second or third banana guys do. Even think about a Scottie Pippen, right? He goes to the Rockets and then he goes to the Blazers at the end of his career. And that's one of the greatest players of all time. That's a top, 40, 50 player of all time at worst. But even he has to end up as a kind of a bit piece on teams trying to weave their way into championship contention. I don't think Draymond wants that. I think he would love, I think he's realistic about potentially ending up somewhere else for the rest of his career, but I don't think he wants at all. I think he wants to be with the Warriors for how many years he plays and retire as a Warrior. I don't think he wants to do the one-day contract thing where after he plays for, like you said, Memphis or whatever for 2 years, then he has to come back. He doesn't want that. So yeah, at the end of the day, as frustrating as it can be, is for all the faults he has, he is self-aware enough to know kind of where his bread's buttered. So again, and I hit this, we need to renegotiate with him in the summer, get that number lower. And then there's potential that he's back next year. But I do think what's really on the table is him being that six-man Iggy role, whether it's the rest of this season or it's just kind of from the beginning of next year, especially if Al comes back. I think it's a huge part of it, and how Porzingis looks. I don't think there's a good chance if both those guys come back. I don't think he's a starter next year to start the season.
I'm not so sure on that, to be honest with you, but I do think his minutes are going to be more in the mid-20s. And whether that's coming off the bench or starting, I think that's the reality. I also think Porzingis' minutes are probably going to be there, and we know what Al's minutes are. No back-to-backs, going to be limited in the first part of the season. So, look, the days of him leading the team in minutes and my favorite part of the 2016 finals, which never really gets discussed, he played all but 50 seconds.
And
he played game 7.
Game 7.
Yeah. And he had a positive plus and he had a positive plus minus. They lost the game. You could say they lost the game in the 50 seconds he sat, because he was
the best player on the floor in a game that featured peak LeBron James, peak Kyrie Irving, peak Steph Curry, and peak Klay Thompson. He was
injured Steph.
Yeah,
he was the best player on the floor.
He was the best player on the floor, and it really wasn't arguable. LeBron wasn't that good that night. Kyrie, he obviously made the big shot, but he wasn't that good that night.
No, it was the Draymond. He was the best player on the floor, and it was the quintessential. It's how does this guy have that much energy given he's tasked with physically competing with guys 40 pounds heavier than him? And it's I think only there's a reason Kirk compares him to Rodman. Yes. It's really only him and Rodman where I'm just they can tap into this motor that literally no one else can, and play at that level. And, now you're just seeing him deal with aging, where it's Wemby comes to town, he'll throw it back. But Tuesday or Wednesday, the knees and the back are acting up a little more.
And him and Robin might both be alcoholics. So it's another.
I mean, this is another conversation, but there is a trend between the best defensive players of all time and
substance abuse problems,
living in the fast lane off the court. You know what I mean? Throw Ron Artest in there. So
yeah. I mean, I don't think Arnett has any of those issues, but you have to be you kind of have to have a screw loose to be that level of a defender, because it's obviously not only the physical capabilities, it's the effort and the mental. Because nobody wants to do that. It's like being a defensive lineman in football. You know what yeah. It's kind of a thankless job. You know, like, but you have to have this level of like this constant,
pretty much every star. Like people talk about Kobe and MJ as all defensive caliber players, and they were when they wanted to be. But you go watch any of their games. Yeah. Little floating free safety, and then I'm going to lock in on key possessions as I need to, which like is fair when you're carrying that offensive load. But it's a little different than what someone like Draymond is tasked with. Yeah, Lawrence Taylor. Someone mentioned that one.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going down this path, but yes, you're on point. So
yeah, but it's like, you know, you think about it, let's just like look at the Super Bowl this year. Like the Seahawks just absolutely dominated the Patriots up front. And like, suffocate. And like they were probably in a way like the MVPs of the game, but like you get one sack for that. And it's the same as like Draymond making a key defensive play where it's like he's doing all these things over the course of the game that don't get the recognition that Steph making a 30-footer gets. But if he gets one key block down the stretch, or like think back to the first round last year, he gets a key stop on Şengün. You know, like that's the one play that gets the highlight. But over the course of the game, he's doing so many things that are having such an outsized effect on winning compared to the attention that gets paid to it.
Yep. All right, let's get to we got some people want to call in. Let's go with our guy Guru. Guru, it's been a minute. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, it has been a minute. How are you guys doing?
Are you finally sleeping?
Kind of, like it's gotten better. It's gotten better. Like the last couple of weeks have got, like, she's about to be 4 months now, and so the last couple of weeks have been thanks. So like the last couple of weeks have been better from that perspective. But you know, happy to call in. It's been a while, so thanks for taking my call.
Midday game probably works to your favor.
Exactly. Big time. And plus the weekend, the wife is looking after the baby now, so I can call in.
Sure.
And be. I'm listening offline, but you know, again, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, you guys sort of beat me to the punch with the topic of conversation. Like I was going to bring up Draymond too, and it was so like obvious that he wasn't in this game, and the offense was sort of flowing. Like the shots were more open, there was more space to operate. Moody, like obviously they were more confident, and like I mean that just goes back to like, yeah, Tommy, you had that video you posted. Like I 100% agree, and I mean it's just a conversation that needs to happen in the offseason. I think all parties know it at this point. And I mean games like this just make it more obvious, right? And with KP and like, so my like second cousin, you could say, I guess, like relative, but you know, kind of long distance relative. He's a sports medicine doctor in Kansas. So he was telling me about like with POTS, like this is what you have to deal with, like sudden illnesses, like out of nowhere. And he, like, in order to really like manage KP the way you want to manage him, he sort of has to be under like some sort of hospice care, in the sense that like you gotta like make sure his blood pressure is always being monitored, and he has to like eat like salty food if and when it's necessary. And that's how you got to manage it. And like it's sort of like from an 82 game standpoint, it's kind of like questionable how they're going to do it, but you know, like we'll see what happens there. But like this is exactly what he was warning against, kind of with that kind of thing.
So I'll jump in on this, and I've shared this briefly, like just in little snippets. My brother has been dealing with POTS for about the same amount of time that KP has. He got COVID back in middle of 2024. Had long COVID, and then it developed into POTS. It's been really difficult, but he's coached high school basketball for the last couple of years, but that's literally all he could do was go to practice and go to games. Their season just ended last weekend, lost in the second round of the playoffs, and he's literally just been at home just trying to recover for the last week. He's constantly exhausted, and his symptoms have gotten a lot better, because at first he had to wear sunglasses all the time because any type of light was like blinding to him, and he would get like excruciating headaches. He had no energy. It was hard for him to get out of bed. And like these are things that you can improve on. But and I actually want to have my brother on for a couple minutes at some point to talk about this from a more personal kind of standpoint. But anybody who's like in the comments saying that like KP is just like acting or like he just doesn't want to play basketball, it's not true. Like this stuff it's very, very, very real. And it's incredibly difficult to manage, and it's incredibly unpredictable. That's the biggest thing. Any type of like hard physical exertion, it can, like you're saying, Guru, it can reactivate those symptoms so quickly. And it's something that is going to have to be constantly monitored. And the biggest issue is like we don't have a ton of data on it yet, because it's not that it's a new phenomenon, but like the volume of it is new because it is kind of an onset from COVID in a way. So as we get more data on it, it's going to be easier to manage, and we're going to come up with better treatments for it. But it's something that's going to have to be kind of a day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour thing. So this is going to happen again and again and again. And this was like, I love KP as a player. He is a good basketball player, but this was the biggest issue with trading for him. It's not even the leg injuries. It's the physical, like the POTS. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason that they did trade for him, to be honest with you. Not that he's like, that he has POTS, like, oh hell yeah, we got him. But it's like the reality is like you're going to be able to attain him on a significantly smaller number, which gives you much more flexibility. So it's like they knew that they had to move off of Kuminga. Obviously, the market for him was not what they were hoping it was going to be because they mismanaged the whole situation for 2 years. But, this is kind of the best of it. A player who, objectively, when he's healthy, is very good, but he's probably a 20-minute per game guy the rest of his career, maybe 25, something like that. Like, I don't have any illusions that he's going to be a 30-plus minute per game guy for the Warriors. I think he's going to be in one of those, like, Bogut, post 30, David West, one of those guys where it's just like, this guy helps you, but it's going to be in smaller doses.
We have built a team of guys who can't play back-to-backs and can't play more than 32 minutes a night.
We're going to cobble 48 minutes out of Draymond, Horford, and Porzingis. That's the,
hey,
that's the move.
True, genuine strength in numbers. They need a 12 to 13 man rotation because nobody can play more than 30 minutes a night.
Except for Guy Santos.
Yeah. Exactly right. It's like, KP alone doesn't work, but KP plus Horford plus Draymond plus Post, right? Like, and that's pretty much what you're banking on. Like, and by the way, Post, really good defense on Jokic today.
Yeah. And yeah. I think that's kind of
instead of having a max big, we're gonna pay max money for 3 guys to play 48 minutes.
It's like building a middle reliever staff.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly.
Gonna recreate it in the aggregate. There you go. All right,
Guru, we appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
have a good one, dude. Let's get Paratosh up here. Paratosh always talking shit in the chat. Hey, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my headphones were muted for some reason. What was I talking shit about, Sam?
When are you not talking shit, Paratosh?
I guess so. That's true.
He's out here being like, oh, so you weren't taking Blue Chew and a bunch of edibles? And I'm like, come on, man. I only plug products I use.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll take that out. But yeah, I think you guys started off with what I wanted to talk about regarding Draymond. Like every time I've seen, like, I've been on the Draymond train, but every time I see without Draymond, the offense looks much better, obviously. So, but I kind of like where Tommy was going with it, that we could possibly, like, if he does pick his option, then we definitely should trade him. But if not, then we have like something to play with. But I'm just not sure, especially with KP's spots, like, do we have enough even with Horford there? Because like even Horford for half the season was basically a non-player, right? Non-playable bigs, like until his sciatica he recovered from that. So between Draymond, Horford, KP, and Post, do we have enough to have like a serviceable big for 82 games? And that's kind of what I'm concerned about.
I think you can cobble enough minutes out of those guys because like Post hasn't, fingers crossed, but he hasn't really dealt with injuries. And I think he is best as a, kind of a backup third big man type. And,
also you can find a vet minimum, like a Nemias Kita, or like, you see like these guys
But it's like 5 bigs on a roster of 15 men. Like,
it worked. It worked
Hey,
in 2015.
yeah, I was
going to
say back in
2026.
Who's the new James
I
Michael
mean,
McAdoo? We got to find him.
you had like a 26-year-old Steph or whatever. Now we have like 38-year-old Steph. So.
I think to answer your question in an earnest way, it depends what they do with Jimmy's contract.
Yes.
If you keep Jimmy, which like,
that was my assumption that they would be keeping Jimmy because it doesn't seem like they're intending to trade him until like they see him back on the court.
Don't believe a word they say. I'm gonna tell you right now.
I guess, yeah.
I know I will. This is a Sam sources. They tried to see what they could get with his contract. Now, did they try hard enough and did they make the right decisions? Those are questions I cannot answer. But the idea that they were not shopping him while injured to see if they could flip him is a lie. Nobody wanted him at that point. That might change in the summer because then he's a true expiring. Or to your point, they may get to this position where they determine it's not worth it because the CBA says they can't give up picks. Like we can't do anything about that. It's in the CBA. But
they didn't have good offers for Kuminga either. By the way, they never had a chance to really trade him for anything good. OG was never.
Yeah, that was one of the best lies of all time.
That was incredible. See,
about that, the lies are like
gaslight years, baby.
Trump. It's exactly like Trump. They know that they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying, and he's lying for no reason.
I really don't like. I guess I get it. The part I get is they have no incentive to publicly like display their hand. Like I would like, maybe it would fulfill me as a podcaster, but like, what is Joe or Mike's incentive to be like, yes, these were the only offers we had for Kuminga. Like, obviously you're not going to say that. But yeah, when they go out there and say, we were never talking about this player, we were never talking, like, those are lies. They've been aggressively pursuing this stuff. Now, were they acting smart? Were they aggressive enough? Those are questions I can't answer. And I tend to think probably not, but the idea that they were not exploring this stuff is just inaccurate.
What they're also like, what Joe or Mike is counting on when they make these type of comments, they're not counting on sickos like us analyzing it. They're counting on they're thinking about like the more just like normal fan who isn't locked into every transaction and every
not grinding tape.
Yeah, they're not grinding tape. Like
not on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, because there's we are the vocal minority here. And I mean that it's like a little bit tongue in cheek, but that is the reality of it. Like out of the millions of Warriors fans around the world, 90% of them, they don't know that Kuminga was potentially in a trade for OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam. They don't know. They have no idea that we could have traded him for Alex Caruso back in 2024. So like when they say stuff like that, they're like, yeah, there's going to be these idiots online who like yell at us and get mad at us. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter in the overall perception.
They even did that with Clay before he inevitably walked in free agency when he was a expiring contract, see if they can use his contract to go get something else. And by the way, they're not the only team who does it. And this is kind of the thing I hate most about this new CBA. You're almost dumb if you don't do it because of how much of a hard cap the second apron's put in. So to get back to your original point, Paratosh, I have no doubt they're going to see what they can use Jimmy's contract plus picks to get. I'm also not confident that they'll do anything with it. And if the reality is they come back next year with Jimmy injured, hoping he's back by the All-Star game, then yeah, it's going to be tough to build the requisite depth. It just is, because that's a lot of money that's not playing.
Yeah, that was my concern. That especially in a hypothetical world, if KP was back to his best, maybe, but I'm like almost 100%, more than 100% sure that's not happening either, right? So where does that leave us for next season? Are we content with not contending or like even being a fringe contender? Or because like if that's the outlook with Draymond, and like I thought you could use Draymond's salary to get something that's kind of like meaningful. So that's why I was like more intending or more leaning towards trading him with the salary if he picks up the option.
I think your best case scenario, Paratosh, is you bring back. So first off, you find Porzingis to be physically manageable to be, let's call it a 20-minute game, a game guy, right?
Fingers crossed.
You bring him and Melton back. Now you have two good rotation players. They're still going to have to figure out a trade because I don't think, even if they keep Jimmy, I don't think he's going to be the Jimmy we saw pre-injury. and now they need a second star. They just
Yeah.
do. So I don't know where they're going to get it from at this point. You know, they're going to go back to the Giannis well and loot strike out for the 100th time.
Oh my God, Jesus.
But you could, like, let me put it this way. If they flip Jimmy's contract into an all-star caliber player and bring back most of the roster and maybe make a couple moves around the edges, I could buy into that. You know,
Oh,
I
yeah,
could
for
really
sure.
buy in. I could buy into that. A lot of it depends on that, because there's no way around it. The Jimmy injury was a step backwards. Like, he was a
Yeah.
great player, you know, and there's no recreating him in the aggregate. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to have to, the reason that we were buying them as contenders is they finally had a number 2 next to Steph.
Yeah.
It was Steph and
This
Jimmy.
is why
and
like
you have
AD
the right
or
pieces.
JJJ would
So
have
now-
been a great acquisition. But yeah.
So now we're like, you know, I enjoyed what I saw from Moody and Podz today, and I hope it continues, and all that stuff will help. But we're still going to be entering the offseason with this. Okay, can we go find that co-star for Steph? Because now we're back at that stage. Honestly, I like their depth more so now. But
the depth has, I think the last couple of years, the depth has never been the issue as much as the second star has been. So,
it's been always been the top end talent. It has been the depth. They've actually, there's still a lot of really good role players on this team. It's just the top end.
I'm just afraid like that's the most likely scenario, that we enter next season with basically the same roster and just we get sold. Hey, KP might be a useful rotation player, and when that we'll go on a run and like become an outside contender. So knowing the front office and
appreciate you, Paratosh. Tommy, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah,
look, there's zero chance they're going to end in the top 3 in the draft. Not because of tanking, but let's go both ways. Let's say they don't make the playoffs. Let's say they do. Let's say Steph never comes back the rest of the year, which I don't think will happen.
No, I don't.
They still have just won simply too many games to be like lower than like the 9th best odds, right? And typically when you're like at that 10th to 15th range, like you don't jump into the first seed unless you do an egregious trade with the Lakers, in which case Adam Silver helps you. So my question for you is, if they got a top 3 pick,
yes,
would you trade it? Would you trade it?
Oh,
where's your line? Where's your line? And let's take this off the table, because they get a top 3 pick, I don't think we have to discuss like, oh, are you willing to give it up for Giannis or Jokic? Because that goes without saying. You know, it's like knowing that shit is not on the table. Or where's your line? Where's your line?
So in like almost any other year, you're saying top 3 pick, right? So the bottom of this is
just walk me through the top 10. What you do?
I think my line I would consider, and so is this name, I'd consider trading a top 3 pick for Trey Murphy, just because Trey is ready-made, out of the box, potential all-star with the Warriors. But yeah, no, I would have a hard time doing it, because like, I mean, shit, dude, take a walk with me and imagine Cam Boozer on this team. I do. We've been talking,
or Darren Peterson.
We have been talking about it offline. Yeah. I know you are like, for you, Cam Boozer.
I'm moving there.
Cam Boozer talking too. Like, I love Peterson. I think he's the best prospect, despite all the weird shit that is happening with him. Like, who knows? If you really watch like his high school tape, the level of like explosiveness is not even close to the same right now. Honestly, I do think the hamstring is a real thing, and there's definitely like a little bit of the agent getting involved and like whatever you want to term it. It's a weird situation. Like, don't get me wrong. I think
let's assume if all that checks out, he's an undisputed number 1 for me.
There is literally no fucking question. You watch him and Debanza play against each other in high school, and he clearly is dominating Debanza, who's incredible.
Did you watch them play in college? That was like honestly the perfect Darren Peterson experience, where he destroyed him for the first half on both ends of the floor and then didn't play the second half.
I mean, he put his nuts on the table, literally. He's like,
yeah,
you know who I am, essentially. But you watch like, and not like the Debanza played bad when they had like high school matchups, but Peterson was like clearly the guy on the floor, and he was super competitive and like was not scared of the moment at all. So he's the number 1 for me. And I think
he's the most skilled college guard I've seen since Kyrie
ever.
Irving.
Yes.
Only he's got like the same measurements as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like he's what, 6'6", 6'5", long, lanky.
Good
Hasn't
defender
grown
too.
into-
Good defender
Yeah.
too. And the playmaking isn't
Well,
there
those are
right
things
now.
that like come when you're like 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan as opposed
Right.
to 6'2", which Kyrie is, you know?
Yeah, and he hasn't really been a good playmaker at Kansas, but again, if you like and
That's Kansas. That's Kansas offense, though. Like,
yeah,
I was curious how he'd look in Kansas's offense because Bill Self does not let players dominate the ball. You know, it's like it's like one of the more.
It's very egalitarian.
Yeah,
but
it just doesn't affect his scoring because he's just that skilled.
And I don't want to like talk high school that much, but for me, like watching high school tape, it's more about process. It's like this is why I hated Wiseman. Is because you could see the process on Wiseman's high school tape. Be like, this guy literally is the dumbest basketball player I've ever seen. You know, like when you watch Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer's or DePance's tape, and Cam in my opinion, Cam and DP, they process the game at a different level.
I agree with that.
DePance does. Like DePance, he's not like he's just not super high feel, but the physical traits are so ridiculous that it's
and
like
the dog. Like
Dude,
he makes up for the fact that he's not quite as like refined mentally as those guys are at this stage. With just like that's a very competitive. I'm buying stock, you know.
And he gets downhill. I think the most underrated part about his game, everybody falls in love with like the step backs and like the jump shooting stuff. Where he's not that efficient of a jump shooter. Actually, that guy gets downhill and to the front of the rim so often. Like he's going to be a guy who walks into the league and is shooting 8 free throws a game. The super long strides, incredibly physical, incredibly like over the top of the rim finishing. But if to like bring it around here, I do think like for the Warriors specifically, I mean, I think I'd take Peterson if they get the number 1 pick, but Cam Boozer on the Warriors would be genuinely absurd. Like I can't imagine a better fit.
I don't think I could trade any of those 3 if the Warriors somehow got them, unless it's for a legitimate top 5 player right now. Like, yeah, if first off, if they get a top 3 pick, the Bucks might actually agree to a Giannis trade because they get what they want, which is a guy to build around. In which case, you know, you do that. But like in most scenarios, when I look at it, it's like this is like one of the only drafts where I'm like, you know what? Bring me the teenager, bring me the kid. Because these guys this is what they were actually hoping for with the 2 timeline. Stop it. No,
my bad, dude.
I need that. I was gonna get clipped.
We're that out.
No, we're not. What I was gonna say is, but if it falls outside, like Caleb Wilson is very intriguing. But if we get in that range, that's where I need Joe to move the pick.
I'm out.
That's where I need Joe to move the pick because that's. You know, it's not as bad as the 2 timeline fiasco, but like the guys after the top, like there's just no world in which Steve Kerr is not playing Cam Boozer 25 minutes in November and 30 plus minutes in January. You know, there's no world in which he's not doing that with Diambanza and like Darren Peterson, health permitting. You know, there's just no world in which that's happening because those guys are that good. It's like I don't know if they're better than Cooper Flag. Or worse, but it's like the same concept of like if the Warriors got Cooper Flag, Steve would be playing him all game. Don't worry, like don't concern yourself.
Cooper would be their second best player right now, and it wouldn't even be close. Like that's where people should.
Well, it's because those top 3 guys, like they have NBA processing speed and competitiveness day one, and skill. Quite frankly, they have NBA caliber skill too. You know, so it's like. I don't know. I don't want to go down that path, but in the world that the Warriors lucked into something in the lottery, it'd be hard not to. It'd be very hard for me. It'd be really hard for me if they somehow got the number 2 pick, right? And it's AJ Diambanza, right? For me to say trade the pick given Steph's got runner's knee and how good he's going to be. Yeah, he is. You know what I'm saying? Like is today.
I would. He would be.
Doesn't matter. They're not going to get that. Anyway.
No, they're not. But like the Banter would be the most like Kuminga like pick out of the 3. But still, he's so skilled and so competitive that I think Steve would get the most frustrated with him, like relative to the other two guys compared to like Peterson and Boozer. But still, like he's not gonna like there would never be like times where like the Panthers just out of the rotation. Like that's how talented he is. They're all ridiculous. Like this is, and there's other guys that we haven't even hit on. Like this draft is potentially shaping up, and 2025 was really good. But this one is shaping up to be literally a potentially like 1984, 1996 level draft.
2003?
2003, where you're talking about like, 5-6 Hall of Famers in the lottery. Like I don't think that's out of the question here.
No, it's a very intriguing draft. So I don't know. They're not going to end up in the top 3. They're gonna have like the 13th pick, which is the perfect range for them to make every wrong decision.
I don't even want to think about it, Sam. We got a lot of time.
Get a player who's interesting, who I like, but is too far away, and they don't know how to do it, but they don't want to lose the asset. Anyway, we're gonna end this here. Appreciate everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Nice Sunday win.